Hey guys, we're back in the little R&D vineyard today, and today I'm going to talk about how to protect your vines against winter damage. So we're a little bit north here. We get cold nights, and it's not uncommon to get 1 or 2 nights that are below 0 degrees Fahrenheit. And if you get too much below, you start to run into a little bit of issues. There's a couple different types of vines that I'm growing here. I'm growing some hybrid grapes, which really aren't as much of a concern. They're the French-American hybrids. They're very cold hardy, but the grapes that are going to be the concern are going to be your traditional wine grapes, the vinifera. I've got Riesling here, merlot, cab franc. All those are going to run into issues if you get down below, say, -5, maybe -10 degrees Fahrenheit. So it's beneficial just to do a little bit of, thinking ahead there, just to make sure that if that does happen, you don't lose your whole entire vineyard. So first things first, winter protection really starts in the middle of the summer. You really want to make sure you kind of slow those vines down and ease them into the winter. You don't want them to be actively growing, come end of October. You want them to kind of slow down and go dormant. And the way you do that is you start to limit the nitrogen of that grape starting, say, July. You don't want to apply any fertilizer after June-ish. You don't want to apply any manure, anything that's going to supply that vine with a lot of nitrogen to keep it, growing that green vegetative growth. And it's not, you might think this is a problem, you're not going to ripen your grapes, but it's really not. That nitrogen is really just going to help the leafy growth and not necessarily help those grapes develop the sugars that they need. So don't worry about that. The other thing you can do to kind of try to slow the vines down is early in the season, I'll try to keep all this area clear of weeds, but come mid-season, I don't mind a little bit of cover crop to provide some competition for those grapes. So for me, I'm not actually planting anything fancy as far as cover crops. I'm just letting the weeds kind of start to grow and compete a little bit with those vines for nitrogen and resources, because really we've got pretty fertile soil here. So those vines are just going to grow. They're going to be fine. Now, as you get closer to the winter, after harvest, after the leaves have fallen off, then it's time to start doing some more protection type things. You can first take off your vine shelters if you have them. So these are great in the summertime to stop the deer from munching off the tiny little baby vines that are so vulnerable. But in the winter, if you get a hot day or a sunny day, you don't want to heat those vines up enough to pull them out of dormancy. You want them to stay dormant through the winter and not start to swell buds or anything that could get damaged if we do get a cold day later on. So get those vine shelters off, or those tubes off. And then next is if your vines are grafted, which most vinifera wines will be grafted onto American rootstocks, and this is to protect against, or just to have rootstocks that are more resistant to phylloxera, which will kill your vines otherwise, or just damage them. But if your vines are grafted, which these are, you can see a little graft union here where you have an American rootstock and you've got the Riesling up here. You're going to want to protect some of that vine above the rootstock. So what I'll do is I'll take this grape hoe, and this is just a really heavy, kind of like a garden hoe that's about as heavy as an axe. So it just kind of chops right into the ground. And you can take this grape hoe and just sort of hill up your vine. So build a little hill, a little mound around it, and get at least maybe 2 or 3 inches above that graft union. And this will sort of insulate the vine. So if you have a night that's -5 degrees, or let's say you have a really, really bad winter night that's like the 10-year coldest night ever, and it kills all this stuff on your vine, anything under this mound will stay alive. So in the springtime, you can just pull your mound off, and with the roots being already established, it'll blast some new vine parts up pretty quickly. So you'll lose grapes that year, but the next year you should be fine. So It's really a really simple way to protect your investment and not lose your entire vineyard if you just have an insanely cold night. If you really want to take it to the next step, maybe you have like only 10 vines and you don't want to lose them. You can take your grape hoe and dig a little, like a ditch, and bury that vine in the ditch. And that will very, very reliably protect the vine. You wouldn't want to do this if you live somewhere wet, where you actually could fill that ditch with water, but you also don't really want to grow grapes anywhere wet that you could fill that ditch with water. But that's a very reliable way to protect your vines. You can also encourage some little bit of growth down at the bottom, like some renewal spurs, to grow new trunks from if your trunks were to get damaged. One thing that's very common, and I'm kind of trying to do it here, is to have redundant growth. So if you can have 2 trunks, maybe 3 trunks, and maybe you only use one of them, but the other ones are just up here and they're clipped off every year. If you do suffer some bad winter damage, you're unlikely probably to have everything just get wiped out. You might have something where like 20% of the vine is damaged. By having those extra renewal trunks, usually you'll probably be all right and you won't really lose a crop. So that's a pretty common thing to do. If you go up to the Finger Lakes, you'll see a lot of that where there's 2 or 3 trunks. It doesn't really look as pretty, but it's really effective method to protect your vines. You'll see up on the front here, I've got a data logger, so I'll be able to keep an eye on the temperatures, and I'll see if we get down, below something like -5 Fahrenheit. That's when you might start to see some damage. You get down to -10 Fahrenheit, you're really starting to enter the danger zone. So you'll probably want to start inspecting for, any signs of injury. I would say these are the main sources of, or the main, methods to help protect your vineyard. I've got an article on this on my website, www.smartwinemaking.com. So make sure you go check that out for some, supplementary material. And if you haven't yet done so, make sure to click the little subscribe button below. And if you want to get notifications for new videos, click the bell. If you have any other little tricks, make sure to mention them in the comments, because I'm always interested in learning from what some more experienced growers have done to, help combat the winters of the north. So hope to hear from you guys, and thanks for watching.